Good Tuesday morning, Market Chameleons, and everyone joining for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market show with this man, Dimitri Pargamonic. How you doing, D?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great. You want to start with the disclaimer?
Yep. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I and Market Chameleon, we're not a registered investment advisor. We're not a broker dealer. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need advice, call your registered investment advisor, call your broker. That's what they're there for, to give you advice, provide you with guidance.
Excellent.
Disclaimer. Let me share my screen. If anybody is joining us for the first time, we do this show every morning to help answer any questions you may have about Market Chameleon tools, data, or analytics. Also, if you wanted to ask questions or discuss strategies or something unusual you've seen, you're welcome to come on the show and ask that question live. We provide a link to Zoom. If you click on that link, it takes you to Zoom. When you're in Zoom, there's a button, raise your hand. Click on that. You don't have to turn on your video camera. Once we let you in, you could ask your question live and direct. If you prefer to type in a question, you could also type it into the live chat on YouTube. Will's watching it. He'll read it back to me. While we're waiting for questions to come in, what we'll do is start out taking a look at the pre-market report, see what's trading in the pre-market hours, see if we could get some insights. If we don't get any questions, I'll navigate to a different part of the website, see if we could get some insights from a different report. All right, so let's start out with pre-market report, and these are stocks trading in the pre-market hours. We have a list of our most active stocks in the pre-market, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. Down here, I see 58 stocks made our percentage gainers list, 41 on the decliners. So from this perspective, we're looking like we're setting for a slightly bullish bias at the open. And if you see, there are a lot of stocks on this list. We have small cap stocks, ETFs, preferred stocks, closed-end funds, rights units, anything that's listed on a major U.S. exchange. If it's trading in pre-market hours and it meets our threshold, it could make this list. And what you want to do is narrow down the list to a smaller group of stocks to get a little bit better insights. And to do that, you could use the filters up above. And we're going to use this one in ETF. When you click on it, you have a drop down with a list of different ETFs. The top one, SPY, that's the S&P 500 ETF. When you select it, let's do that here, SPY, you could see that the tables below got refiltered by stocks that are holdings in the SPY ETF, which are the S&P 500 constituents. And here we see 9 stocks made our percentage gainers list, 5 on the decliners. So from this perspective, slightly bullish bias at the open. It's not a huge list, but still a little bit more bullish bias. Let me see. I don't know if you got any questions today. You said at the end of the day, you might have had some questions.
Yeah, we had some questions about some different stocks. One was LSI Life Storage, which is just an interesting way to show the new. I don't know how often we've talked about the new search feature. It's just so robust. But
another, you type in LSI in there, and it looks through, different parts of the website that you could visit to look at LSI. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that part, because I wasn't.
One thing I did notice actually when I brought it up, there's a big, I think it dropped to the summary page. Well, I went to the summary page. Like there's a big red alert on it that says takeover target. Right. I'd never noticed that before.
Yeah, so that is a feature recently added. And if we pick up, so we do have a team of people who parse news for us, press releases, and structure certain data that we think is important. One of them is if we pick up that company is either, if it's a takeover target, we do put that into our database, and we created this alert. So there aren't, I guess, a lot of details yet, but if you click on it, right? So here's LSI. We got that alert, takeover target. If you click on it over here, it'll take you to the press release that we are referencing, right? So here on Business Wire, Public Storage proposes to acquire Life Storage and all stock transaction. So you could read about it more here. But obviously that is, an important factor that should go into anybody's decision making, right? That this stock is gonna, if it gets taken over, then it'll become whatever part of, whatever Public Storage decides it's gonna do with it, probably just bring it in. Looks to me like it's just gonna merge it with its existing entity. But yeah, that's a feature that is relatively new, because I don't see it, right? We don't usually see it because it has to be a takeover target when we pick it up. But thanks, Will. That's true. So that's how it is. If we had more details that we could structure, like for example, if there was a price target, this one doesn't look like a price target. It looks more of like you're exchanging shares, right? But I believe that it's exchanging shares. I didn't read about it enough, but if there was like a price target, we would quickly put it in there too. And the date expected to close. So, I'll let you guys go read about it, whoever brought it up. I don't know if there's a follow-up question to it about LSI, but that's right now what we're seeing. Was there another one? And well, you're on mute, just saying.
Yeah, there was another one asking about Intel's dividend. Is there a risk of, are the options show maybe a risk of it being cut? I know it looks like a value trap at this point with a, higher dividend and, well, I don't know if it's high relative to the treasuries now, but
yeah, so you could see Intel's history of, raising dividends, and that's just recently come to an end. So, right, they just decreased it 65%. So they did cut it, right? They already announced it from 36.5. They cut it to 12.5. So that actually already happened. The next dividend, they didn't pay it out yet. So the last one they paid was 36.5 cents. They paid it out March 1st. So when Feb 7, March 1st was the last dividend, 36.5 cents. It looks like they already announced the next dividend and that they cut it to 12.5 cents. So you could see that's a 65% cut. So forward yield 2%. All right, so that already did happen. They already did cut it. If you're going forward, we don't know that yet, right? We don't know what's going to happen going forward. But Intel's, at one time, I remember Intel used to be, the stock everybody wanted to own. Like that was things really change, over time. Technology changes, things change, and there was one time everybody wanted to own Dell, right? Everybody wanted to own Yahoo. Like right now, it's Apple, Google, Microsoft. Microsoft seems to have been, one that's actually existed over time. You could say they kind of have a monopoly on the desktop operating systems.
But it also had some bad years, right?
It had some, Microsoft,
and so did Apple.
Apple at one point looked really bad. At one point they were, until they brought Steve Jobs back, they were looking really bad. Steve Jobs they started, I think that they started the, what's that? Was it the iPod?
Pixar?
Called it. Well, no, before that, before the phone, they started with the music player, right? It was like a digital music player, forget what you call it. And that just took
Yeah, I
off.
think it was the iPod, right? I think.
Yeah. When he came in there, he started, and everybody started wearing these iPods, and then he's like, well, let's make it into a phone. And but before that, they looked pretty bad. Now they're at the top of the list.
An area. I mean, I think Next Computer. I think that was a company he tried to start right after he left Apple. So
really?
technology is always changing and adapting. That's for sure.
It's changing. Yeah, nobody likes. Today it looks like the top 5 or whatever, like they'll be there forever, but we don't know that. If you go back in history, a lot of companies that existed paying high dividends, and at one point it was like railroads, then there are airlines that looked like those were the things to invest for a long time.
Yeah, well, just 3 years ago it was cryptocurrency and NFTs, and now everyone's talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of commentary, both positive and negative, about the companies that are really involved with AI, both Google and Microsoft.
Right. Exactly. So as far as Intel, I know they passed the CHIPS Act, and supposed to give the semiconductors a boost. They want to incentivize semiconductor production in the United States. So there are a lot of subsidies. I think, I was reading in the Wall Street Journal that a lot of it is trying to target semiconductors for the military, right? So the military uses semiconductors or whatever in the equipment they purchase. But I think at the same time, I believe it was Citi analysts were warning of a potential glut in inventory. So there was a shortage. Now they think that there might be a glut. And these semiconductors are tricky because, and look, I don't know too much about the fundamentals of semiconductors. I just know a little bit about the surface, what I read, but that there are issues with inventory management, that the prices can fluctuate, and sometimes they have to take losses, right? So they'll produce these chips, and then they can't sell them. They start discounting them. Sometimes they have to discount them to prices below that they produce, and they fluctuate a lot. So they could fluctuate. Let me take a look.
And it also depends on what the chip you manufacture, what it's actually being used for, right? Like, for a while I think it was an AMD chip. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. Was being used heavily in the mining of coins. Most recently, it's NVIDIA, and the chip, is in all the processors that are handling the AI. It's interesting.
So here's the SMH holdings. You could see in the video, up here, 11.5%. Taiwan Semiconductor, Broadcom. I don't even know. Let me see where Intel is. Here it is, all the way down here. All right, so but you could see Intel's dividend now is kind of in line with the rest of the group, right? At 2%, which seems to me like, that's kind of in line with everybody. Here's the dividend yield for the whole SMH, 1%.
Yeah, and the question is, can Intel take that money that they were giving back to the shareholders, reinvest it in the company, and keep the company going, and develop a chip that more people are going to need in the future?
Right, you're right. If it's not a growth story, let me just come back to Intel. And I know that people look at it as a value, but here you go. It's trading at book value, right? So what they say is book value. And when you see that, that a company's trading at book value, that's the market's, signaling to you that they don't see growth, this as a growth story anymore, right? So when you're book value or below book value, they don't see it as a growth story. It becomes more of like, volume, it could be seasonal volumes, could go up and then come back down. But usually once you get down to that book value, it doesn't look, or you could even be below book value, right? Or it's hard to price. Sometimes the banks trade at book value because it's hard to really know what's going on there, because they're in the business of risk, right? So that's a whole different story. Insurance companies and banks are harder to price because what you have is underlying risk that is opaque and nobody knows what's going on in it, like we saw in the financial crisis. But in Intel's case, I think that what the market is signaling is that it doesn't consider Intel right now as a growth story, or whatever they're producing doesn't look that way.
We had a question from Lawrence. Can you take it?
Yep.
He says, can you asked Dimitri about a short put I initiated yesterday, March 3rd. I'm assuming the puts of March 3rd, 24.5. It was in VFC. It's a stock symbol. VFC, Victor Frank Charlie.
Okay. Let me just navigate to it. Okay.
So we sold May 3rd, 24.5 put yesterday. Took in 55 cents.
Okay.
Thinking that if I get assigned, the dividend is next week.
So what was it? It was March 3rd?
Yeah, it was March 3rd.
All right. Okay. So 4 business days ago.
And Lauren, correct me if anything's wrong in what I just said.
Right. So the dividend here, I'm just hovering over it. The ex date is March 9th. Right. So even if you get it, let's say you get assigned on the stock and your put, it's in the money, and you get assigned on the put, so you're going to come in long stock. You're still, if you're doing it, you're going to own the stock before the X date, because the X date is March 9th, but you still have to hold that stock, past March 9th, past the X date, to receive that dividend. Okay. So if after March 3rd, you do get assigned on the stock, let's say, you own the stock, you sell it before March 9th, you're not going to get the dividend, right? So you still have to hold the stock past the ex dividend date, right? If you sell it before, you're not going to get that dividend. And
he sold the put, and the thing is, if he gets assigned, he'll just take the stock, I think, right? Is that what
right? And look, here's the, and that's assuming that the stock is below 24.5 on March 3rd. If it's above, then this put will be worthless. Then you don't get assigned, right? So that's your play. You're just basically bringing in that premium.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but if it had to do with the dividend, yeah, you'd still have to own that stock, and hold it past March 9th.
Yeah, Alex, who I remember end of the year, we were talking about Tesla. It was right around $100, and we were talking about it maybe getting to $90. But I know Tesla's now maybe above 200. I guess there's news tomorrow. I don't know if it's earnings or new product, or can you take a look at the Tesla options? I know they're always very busy, but
so
Alex,
on March 1st, I see an event coming. So here we go. So March 1st, they were having an investor day event, right? So maybe that's some stuff's going on ahead of the event. But Tesla is still, it's one of the most heavily traded stocks and options out there. All right. I think that here, let's take a look. Here's the options volume. So Tesla here, SPY, yesterday traded $1.56 billion worth of options. Tesla right behind her, 1.3 billion. For a while, Tesla was in the #1 spot, by far. I think it was like 2 times what SPY reached, and now it's still up there, but it's calmed down a little bit. So here you could see here 90-day average 3 billion, right? So if we look back 90 days on average, traded $3 billion worth of options. But yeah, I think that let me see. When we go to the options chain here, we put these little, just like we showed you in the previous stock, near the expiration. So these are the expirations. We put little indicators that we think could be important that cover that expiration, right? So that C that you see here stands for, a company event that our processes has picked up. So again, we do have a team of people that we pay to, go through and try to find these important events or important things that impact the stock. When we put into our database, we try to give you those indicators. And that C stands for there's a company event that will cover March 3rd expiration. And obviously all these, because March 3rd comes before all these. So hovering over, you do get an investor day. And of course, it's not earnings, but it could be a catalyst for a big move, because you don't know what they're going to, what the company, the management, what's going to happen. We don't know, but something they could say could impact the stock, dramatically. And we see the run up right now. There, let me take a look at something here. So here's March 3rd. This is a breakdown by expiration. This little e's our estimate of next earnings. They didn't announce a date. So if we look over here at the money straddle, you can see with 4 trading days to go. So March 3rd, 4 trading days to go, the straddle is implying an over-under move of 7.4% in either direction. So you got 4 days to go. A straddle 7.4%, 15 bucks, and there you go. Just yesterday moved 5.5. Right, that's just yesterday adding another 1.6%. So you got 7.4% over under. Right, buying the call, buying the put, heading into that event.
Yeah, I read last night on my phone that Tesla, one of the stories that is swirling is that they're going to announce a $25,000 car. Mr. Tesla's on the chat. He can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess 80%, he would then be able to attack 80% of the available car market. And the rumors
with the
a $25,000 car.
Yeah,
I've been looking for a used car. 25,000 seems like a great deal. I mean, if he could do that.
Yeah, if he could do that, he's going to destroy the used car market.
Yeah, no, it's like he's going to 80% of the market. He could have 100%. If he can make money and sell a $25,000 car, it would be a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, that would be pretty amazing. Yeah,
I mean, he
then,
does.
Then you would.
The story swirling around him, it does bring excitement to what used to be automobiles, right? Was that a tech business or a growth business? Now it is, right? With
Yeah,
things
so you
he's
could
doing,
see here here's price to book value, here's price to sales, right? So let's just keep the PE out of it, but you could see how far the valuation's above sales, above book value. And if we look at what's another car manufacturer that GM, Ford, you could see here, there's nobody's pricing in growth. It's trading below its book value. It's 0.4 of its sales, right? So you're not even one-time sales. There's this piece. So when we're talking about no growth, that's how the market right now is that's the expectations they're built in, right? That there's not going to be any. And General Motors, they're also producing some electrical vehicles, right?
Yeah, and they're having, I know. Well, I think it's Ford, the F-150. They produced an electric F-150, which is their top selling truck, and they've had problems with it, right? What Elon and Tesla, he's been able to produce, product that is great in the marketplace, right? And the technology, he's got a real grasp on the technology. I don't know if you saw that after pictures of the Tesla that drove off a cliff in California and crashed down the side of a mountain.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there was a family of four. Tragically, the father was trying to kill the whole family, and they all survived. It was like it was like a 90-foot drop, and it's just, they say it's the safest car on the market because the way it's designed, the structure, but also because the batteries, which is the weight of the car is in the center. It makes it a much safer car than it being in the front of the car. Yeah. So
one of the things that I find attractive about the electric vehicles is that you don't need to go to gas stations anymore, right? Like my brother, he has a Tesla, and he said, yeah, I haven't been to a gas station in a year.
Who is it, Tesla?
My brother, Alex.
He does?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. So he got a Tesla, and he loves it.
So when he hasn't asked to go to a gas station, does he plug it in at his house? Where does he go to charge it?
He just plugs it in at his house. That's it. He just said.
Okay, but that's a charge, right?
Well, no, he has to charge it. Yeah, it needs, but you don't need to drive.
Yeah, I get
you. It's
very convenient if all you have to do is plug it in.
All you do is plug it in, and you don't make visits to the gas station, and it's a savings. I think he told me, I don't remember what it is, but it's not, it's definitely not the same as paying what you pay in gas.
Yeah, actually, Laurent was saying earlier that he's actually investing in solar panels, and it's going to be once the solar panels are paid off, it's free.
Then the electricity to your house, you're off the grid, right? You could actually sell to the grid, I think, right? If you have, can you sell to the grid?
Laurent happens to be in Europe. I don't know if that's the case, but certainly here. But I do know in some markets, electricity bills are really high. Like, I don't know if because we live near the production in Philadelphia, it's better. But I know in like rural areas in Vermont and Poconos, people are constantly complaining about their electric bills.
Yeah, which by the way, Tesla, I think I think that they do have solar panels that they sell, like residential solar panels. I believe they do. It's not as big a business as their car business, but I think that they do have that as well.
Yeah, was it Solar City? They purchased actually a company that he was one of the main investors in, and his cousins were the chief operating officer and the CEO, I think, and it's now part of it. It's, I mean, I don't know how they work or the cost, but they actually, it's built into the roofing material, so it actually looks like shingles.
Yeah.
No, it's really amazing.
No, if they're trying to make it look more, I don't know, I guess aesthetically appealing, right? But we don't have time, but I think if you go to their website, they have pictures of it.
And then they have no sales office too. It's all literally done online. Correct me if I'm wrong, but everything from ordering the phone to the panels, it's a very interesting. And that's one of the reasons the margins in the car are so high, is because there are no dealerships, right?
No dealerships. I don't even know if they market. I don't even know. I haven't seen a Tesla commercial.
No marketing dollars. It's marketed by people like Laurent, your brother. And of course, Elon is the biggest marketing force there is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, that was some great Tesla discussion. Some really good stuff. There was a question. I'm sorry, I think Ario was asking earlier in the day. Let me try to go to the top and we'll get it for tomorrow. He was saying, just as a side comment, when looking at the pre-market, I noticed we never glance at the economic events, macro trends, bonds or crude. Maybe that's something we can look at tomorrow. The drop down where that is maybe for area. Great job, Dima.
All right, guys, thank you for joining. Everybody stay safe out there. Have a great trading day. Hope to see you guys tomorrow.